My name is Kevin McDonald. I'm Megan's father.
I'm Kathy McDonald. I'm Megan's mother.
My name is Megan McDonald, and this is my formal analytical report on mental health in the criminal justice system. This is a really big issue facing the country today. We have way too many mentally ill people in prisons and jails across the country. The major concepts that I chose to do for my paper are mental health and the inmates. A lot of them are criminalized across the country because we just don't know how to deal with them. Cops arrest them for charges such as disorderly conduct because they have nothing else. But they don't want to leave them on the streets because they're susceptible to more crime. Like, they could get beat up. They're more susceptible to create crimes because they don't fully understand. Their mental capacity isn't there. So something that may make sense to me and you about being arrested, they don't comprehend. They can't understand it. As much as 20% of jail population is mentally ill people. As much as 15% of prisons are mentally ill. If you add these numbers up, that totals about 350,000 people in jails and prisons that have mental disorders. Now, looking at state mental hospital facilities, there's only about 35,000 people. So that's crazy looking at those numbers. You have facilities set up for these people, but jail is just the easier place to put them, which I don't understand because it costs more to house mentally ill inmates in jail than it does for state mental costs. It's about 3 times more. And the second part that I did was policy refinement. Because the funding just isn't there. There's no funding, and we need reform of current procedures. Jails and prisons nowadays act as mental health facilities. The number of mentally ill people in jails and prisons outweighs the number of mentally ill people that we have in mental health facilities, which to me is crazy because jail is not a healthy environment to house these individuals. In 44 of the 50 states, jails or prisons hold more mentally ill individuals than the largest still running psychiatric hospital in the country. And that's why I don't understand why they're not in hospitals where there's doctors and medication they need and everything else. And it costs less to put them in a hospital, but we're putting them in jail just because it's easier. It's a convenience just to throw them all in one place than to worry about, well, we should put them in the hospital so they get the care they need. No, they just pop them in jail. It's just easier. There's less paperwork. You don't have to do as much. You just pop them in jail. Okay. And then you say they're going to get their treatment, but usually they don't. They don't get their treatment. Nearly half the population with serious mental illness will be behind bars sometime during their lifetime. Whether it's for disorderly conduct, or they got in a fight, or usually it's nonviolent crimes with the mentally ill. It's not murder, it's not drug trafficking, it's not stuff like that. It's just white collar crime, basically. And this picture right here shows from 1934 on, and you can see right here in 1960 that the number of people in mental hospitals drops and the number of mentally ill people in prison skyrockets. That's because during the 1960s, hospital mental health patients outnumbered prison inmates 5-1. In today's time, that is reversed. The number of mentally ill patients in prison outweigh the number of mentally ill patients in hospitals 5-1. This all happened during the 1960s, during the Kennedy administration. The Kennedy administration promised these resources, that they were going to put mental health on the community. Well, that funding never happened. The money just never fully developed, never materialized, so they never could get it going the way they planned on it. The effects of imprisonment on mentally ill in prisons and jails is, for the most part, negative. Because most mentally ill people are put in solitary confinement. They're in a room for 23 hours a day. No human interaction. They usually don't have access to their medication. And they usually get 1 hour of yard time to be, like, play basketball or do whatever. But the yard is not what you think of it. It's not like your backyard. It's a little bigger than their cell. It's a room with one window and all concrete walls and maybe a basketball hoop. But that's it. They don't get to go outside. They don't get to, like, experience fresh air. They get a room a little bigger than their cell with one window. That's it. And for mentally ill people, like schizophrenics, they hear voices. So if they're in a room by themselves for 23 hours a day and all they hear is voices, it makes them, excuse the pun, but insane. It makes them feel like they're going crazy because there's no human interaction. They don't have their medication, and they're just sitting in a room with a bed. That's it. The only people that say that it has a positive impact are the people that, if they would not have been incarcerated, they would not have gotten mental health help whatsoever. So they get a little bit in prison, but not at the same rate as in a hospital. There's a couple initiatives that help create a system where they can take the mentally ill people and instead of taking them to jail, take them to a hospital or to see a doctor or an outpatient program, which is a lot healthier for the individual than putting them in prison, which is not a good place for mentally ill people to be. The Stepping Up initiative was created by the National Association of Counties and Council of State Governments and the American Psychiatric Foundation. It is formed to provide examples to law enforcement agencies all over the country to show them that you can do something different. This is not the answer. There are communities out there that have done this. They have reduced the number of mentally ill people in prisons, and it works. It takes a lot of work, but you can do it. I have a video to show you about the Stepping Up initiative. It's just a short little clip about it, so.
Each year in the United States, 2 million people with serious mental illnesses are admitted to jails, many of whom also have drug and alcohol use problems. In fact, across the nation, more individuals with mental illnesses are in jails than in psychiatric hospitals. People dealing with this problem every day agree. The current approach doesn't improve public safety. It stresses already strained budgets, and people who could be helped are suffering. Some counties and communities aren't waiting for help. They're treating criminal justice professionals
So that was that video. It just kind of gives you a brief introduction to what the initiative is. And like the video said, a lot of mentally ill people that are in prisons and jails have other issues stemming from their disorders. Most of them have a drug or an alcohol addiction because their brain makeup doesn't have the capabilities to tell them, no, you shouldn't do that. Because a normal functioning individual is going to see meth or heroin or something like that and say, oh, I don't need that. That's bad for me. Well, these individuals do not have that capacity. And most of them either don't have insurance and can't afford their psychiatric medicine. So they think that, well, if I do drugs, it will kind of relax my brain and I don't have to have medication. But you generally don't want to do crack or heroin or meth when you have a mental disorder, because that only intensifies the wrongdoings in your head. It only makes it worse. So for funding, this is another, after the initiative, this goes hand in hand with that. The funding has been, ever since the 1960s with the Kennedy administration, the funding has been cut significantly. This started with Kennedy, and then it was after the recession in 2008 under Obama, funding for public mental health was cut by another $4 billion, which is a lot. That's like, so there's basically no money to do the things that need to be done because the budget keeps getting cut significantly over and over and over again. In this picture right here, it breaks down the mental health spending per capita per state. Now the blue states are $75 or less, $75,000 or less per state. The orange states like California, those are a little bit more with 106 to 160. Now the teal states right here, those are 76 to 105, and the white or tan states are 161 or more. Now you see there's not many white states. There's only about 6 or 7. Now orange is a little more, but not much. You see a majority of blue and teal states, which means those states do not have a lot of funding per capita to treat mental illness. So the money is just not there, and taxpayers pay for all this. For all the mentally ill people to be housed in jail, it is on the taxpayers and the county. Taxpayers fund that movement. Another policy refinement is reform. There are many reforms that are needed, but one of the major ones is crisis intervention teams, or CIS. Crisis intervention teams are based in law enforcement, in jails and prisons. And they're trained to handle these individuals with de-escalation techniques. Sort of how to calm the individual before it escalates into something that turns to them being aggressive or violent. These programs teach officers the skills they need to deal with these individuals in a safe and humane manner. Today, there are approximately 2,800 CIT programs across the country, but this only amounts to about 15% of law enforcement. So it sounds like a lot, but it really isn't.